We continue our NFL team profiles with Claudia Bellofatto and now Danny Brasco. We got to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Are they still America's team? Is that a thing? Like, are we still doing that? Because I feel like that's super dated. But nonetheless,
Yeah, it's every year. Come on, we're always going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys.
yeah, that's true. I guess it's still a thing. But I'm a Commanders fan, so I'm trying to put that narrative to bed. But let's start from the top here with Brian Schottenheimer, who obviously we've got a new head coach situation. Danny Brasco, I'm going to ask you, what should we expect from him in terms of his leadership and his impact on this franchise?
I do think you're going to see a promising first-year head coach in Brian Schottenheimer, of course, coming from that football legacy. His father, Marty Schottenheimer, like he said, coaching at the dinner table. The guy's got a ton of experience just through his family and, of course, experience in this offense. He was the offensive coordinator since 2022. They had an extremely successful year in 2023 behind Dak Prescott in that offense, where they had 12 wins, stole the division from the Eagles super late, and he had over 4,000 passing yards. So it's a guy that can create success. He's calling the plays as well. And like he said, America's team, this Jerry Jones squad, they always want to go for it. So immediate pressure in his first year. It's a win now culture. No matter what kind of team they put together with the Cowboys, he's going to have a lot on his shoulders right away. We'll see what he can do.
You mentioned his lineage. I just want to shout out Marty Schottenheimer. I think he was a very underrated coach in spite of his lack of winning big games. Claudia, talk to me about Brian's impact on the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Danny, and you guys talked about his dad. I think we'll see a lot of culturally and also schematically what his dad did. He likes to establish the run like they did with Marty Ball, but he doesn't necessarily have the talent to do that successfully. So I think he's going to go out there and want to do it. He's going to, put an emphasis on dominating the trenches. He's talked about wanting to instill that identity around physicality and teamwork, but it all comes down to what guys you have on your roster. And I don't know, being a first-year head coach with an underwhelming roster, just how much he can elevate that. You look at the coaches that were on the market in the offseason, in Ben Johnson, in Mike Vrabel. As a Pats fan, we were very excited to see him. Pete Carroll, there was a lot of hype and high expectations surrounding those guys. And a lot of people are talking about Schottenheimer being a one-and-done deal. I don't know if that's true. I just don't know how much higher he can elevate this team over Mike McCarthy.
It's interesting you mentioned the other head coaching candidates, because I got to tell you, and this is not even an X's and O's but if Mike Vrabel was the coach of the Cowboys, as a Commanders fan, I would probably fear that more than Brian Schottenheimer. And by the way, now we're fearing the New England Patriots because of your New England Patriots, Claudia, because of what they've done in the offseason and because of Mike Vrabel. That's a discussion for a different day. Let's talk about the NFC East and how the Cowboys fit in there. They're plus 600, Claudia, to win the NFC East. Are we touching that number?
Absolutely not. Again, very underwhelming offseason. I know they brought in George Pickens, who's going to stretch the defense, but it's all about the backfield. They had the opportunity to sign Derrick Henry. They could have gone, it would have been hard, but they could have got Saquon Barkley. They could have got Josh Jacobs. Instead, they're going with Javonte Williams coming off his worst season, a 28-year-old Miles Sanders. You have Dak coming back from injury. I know you have CD, but you look at the Eagles, they have two number one guys, basically. The Commanders now have Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel. And both of those teams not only have top talent out of the backfield, but a lot more questions, I think, answered overall. They should be better. I don't know if they can be any worse than they were last year, Dallas, in terms of having a bottom five defense. So I think that will be improved. You bring in Matt Eberflus, who knows how to stop the run and get those takeaways, but that still doesn't put them ahead of Washington and certainly not ahead of Philly. Sia.
Music to my ears. Doesn't put them ahead of Washington. You love to hear it. Danny, talk to me about, because we're going to get to the 7.5 wins, which I think is a lot more realistic. It's a more realistic discussion as it relates to the Cowboys, but talk to me about the plus 600.
Yeah, also not really interested in it. I agree with all of Claudia's points. You're not going to unseat the Eagles here. They still have Saquon Barkley. They still have a menacing offensive line. Philly's going to Philly. I hate to say it. You see the Giants hat signed by Tiki Barber and Jason Sehorn behind me. I'm a Giants diehard, and I know we're going to be 2 easy wins for both of these teams in this division. So ultimately, okay, you take the Giants wins, but fine. Then you got to play the Eagles twice, the Commanders twice. How are they going to win the division doing that? I don't see them I don't even see them splitting those games. So yeah, I don't see it. Not worth the bet here.
Check Jason Sehorn off your early edge bingo card, folks. You love to hear it. Okay, let's go to some props. Let's talk about Dak Prescott. 3,800.5 passing yards. That's the prop. Danny, talk to me, because obviously they improved the receiving room. The running game, to Claudia's point, doesn't look so hot. And sometimes that actually doesn't necessarily help the passing game. How do you feel about this number?
First of all, I got to say, don't sleep on my guy, Javonte Williams. I kind of like him. He's also a very good pass catcher. So even if they're not pounding the rock with him, he's not that, goal line back power style identity. He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. He could really help their game flow a little bit more. Adding George Pickens can help free up CeeDee Lamb and vice versa as well. Maybe, help take some of the cornerback targeting away from them. And look, last year, Dak Prescott missed a lot of time. This is really dependent on his health of his hamstring. Cooper Rush played 8 games, and the Cowboys still able to have some success. He went 4-4 with them. So Jalen Tolbert wasn't a good enough second fiddle for CeeDee Lamb. Remember those games where CeeDee Lamb's like, subpar, Dak, subpar. It's got to be better. I think they'll have better play with Pickens out there, Ferguson gaining some more experience, and a pass-catching style running back. I think they have some chance to put up some numbers if he stays healthy throughout and that offense gets to have a hum a little bit behind Brian Schottenheimer in the first year.
Okay, first of all, I am going to sleep on Javonte Williams, and it's not even his fault. It was a terrible injury, and I don't think he has near the explosion. I'd rather have Rico Dowdle still in that backfield than Javonte Williams. Nonetheless, let's go back to Dak Prescott. Claudia, talk to me about this number, 3,800.5.
Yeah, barring injury, I think even if they're not a successful offense, game script will bode well. I think they'll play in a lot of close games, be playing from behind in some situations. And you look at what he has done. He's had 2 4,000+ yard years since 2021. He was on pace for it in 2022. We talked about how good they looked in 23, basically an MVP run until the latter end of that season. I do think not having a big backfield presence, whether or not you like Javonte Williams, I don't know how effectively they'll be able to establish the run. I think that's going to hurt the passing game overall. But I do think with game scripts and with the arm that we know he does have, if he's healthy, he can get there.
That arm will be leading to George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. I think it's interesting to look at their touchdown totals, Claudia, because George Pickens 4.5, CeeDee Lamb 6.5. I got to say, I'm kind of leaning to the over on CeeDee here, maybe even George Pickens, but you're nodding your head. What do we think here?
It's funny because when I first saw those lines, I was like, that feels so low. And then I realized it sort of makes sense. And I don't want anything to do with them scoring touchdowns. If they looked anything close to what they did last year, they were one of the worst teams in the red zone, second worst behind only the Giants. New England had a better red zone touchdown percentage, and they had a historically bad receiving core. Trust me, I know. And then I looked more into their numbers specifically, and neither guy has hit it consistently. George Pickens has 12 total touchdowns in 3 years. He had 5 in 2023, and that was his best year. And CeeDee can get there, yes. If anything, I would go over there. He led in red zone targets in 2023. He had 12, but that was only 1 of 2 years that he did hit this. You mentioned Jake Ferguson. I'm very high on Jake Ferguson. Mm-hmm. He led all tight ends in targets, so I think they're going to use him a ton as well in the red zone. So I would find other bets, if anything, or I would actually lean under.
Danny, do we like any of these touchdown totals?
Lean towards the over of CeeDee Lamb. This is more of a vibes play than anything. Claudia mentioned he got 12 one year. I'm thinking about subpar Dak. Maybe there's a demand here. We know that he's a star receiver that wants the ball. So you're going to get targets that way. We'll see if Pickens really can help get him open even more and alleviate some pressure. Yeah. But I agree. Claudia said it best. This is worth a pass ultimately, I think, because Jake Ferguson dominated that red zone target share. So if anything, lean towards Lamb for his star power. But the Cowboys love feeding their tight end down there, and I think I'd look elsewhere for props.
Some things never change, and the Cowboys feeding their tight end is just something that's always going to be the case. It doesn't matter what name is on the back of the jersey. We have 60 seconds left. Let's talk about the win total like I promised. It's 7.5. It's juiced to the over. Danny, give me your take. Do we like the over at -165 or the under at +140, or is it a stay away?
I lean towards the over. It's a stay away because I don't want to pay juice on a Cowboys over win total. That's kind of gross. And you look at their schedule, it's actually ranked the 5th toughest in the league. So new head coach, first year, Dak coming off injury, and the 5th toughest schedule. It's tough to take an over, but I think they can improve on a 7-10 season with an injection of new life from Schottenheimer. McCarthy's solid, experienced head coach, but he feels like more of the same every year. They had the injury. Cooper Rush, like I mentioned, still won 4 games. They can win 8 this year, I think.
Yeah, Claudia, it's interesting because I look at that schedule. Yeah, it looks tough. At least that's what people are saying. But those first 5, 6 weeks, there's some winnable games in there, maybe to create some momentum. What are your thoughts on this 7.5 total?
Yeah, schedule wise, you start with the Eagles, then you get really soft, but the back end is absolutely brutal because you get Philly again, then you get the Chiefs, the Lions, and the Vikings all back to back. So that's going to be a terrifying stretch for them. But I do think overall they can get to 7, 8 wins. Last year they went 2-7 in Jerry World, and I do think they'll do better. We saw them go undefeated the year prior. They still finished with 7 wins, though, playing so terribly at home. So yeah, I would lean over, but anything with the Cowboys, I'm not drinking juice.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, that defense definitely has to stay healthy. Yeah, it's sour. But 7.5 nonetheless. We're not paying the price on that one. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Dan.